Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the BOBA Joe Show with Mike and Johnny. Episode, what are we up to now? 3, I think it is.
3. We're at a trilogy now.
Yeah, trilogy. The studio sequel.
Will it go beyond the trilogy though? That's the question. You know, we were just going to have to see what type of ratings this episode does.
Yeah, see how it goes.
Yeah, we don't want to get kicked off the network.
Like I always think, like I don't give a stuff who watches or doesn't watch these because I make it for dudes in our circle of toy friends and that, and anyone else is a bonus. But it's funny watching who's watching what on the YouTubers, because all week, that talk I did with Bjorn the other week about the wrestling, and then our previous episode the same week, one was ahead than the other. One, then it was like the Raw versus Nitro ratings, and it was like. And then for like 3 days in a row, they were exactly even, had the exact same amount of numbers, and then it kept creeping up. It was just, I just found it funny to watch.
Yeah, there's a wrestling war going on between Boba Hicks and Bjorn, you know.
So what are we doing tonight?
We're talking about our favorite GoBots episodes, is it?
Yes, GoBots. You can't stop at one GoBot, can you? If you bought one, you got to have them all.
Amen.
No, we're talking about Transformers.
Transformers.
We're doing our top 4 episodes, and this is of the 1984 Marvel Sunbow cartoon. It's not the best episode ever, just the ones we like the best, or the ones we happen to pick at the moment. You ask us tomorrow, we might have a different top 4. And we've got nice slideshows and graphics and images and stuff, but for people to ignore, because everyone listens to this in the background when they're doing other stuff like we do. Everyone's doing 5 things at once these days.
People love the slides, you know. We got very positive feedback on the production values. You know, people were really happy to see that we upped our game since the first episode, and we're back.
Yeah, I went
bigger, better, bigger budget, special effects, the whole shebang.
We've been to Cybertron and back. We've been to Vector Sigma, and we've got all the extra features and everything. Okay, so I'll bring up our first. We're doing our favorite episodes, but we're going to do just a quick sort of pre-show show, just talking about the Transformers in general, giving you a bit of nerd knowledge. Okay, so so I'm trying to bring up full screen so I can see it better. It's a bit small. Hang on. Okay, so I've crammed a heap of cool images in here, but so the Transformers is, or may or may not know, started out as the Diaclone and Micro-Change Takara toys. They got seen at a toy show by some American representatives, so brought over and rebranded as the Transformers. They recolored a lot of the toys. They released the comics. They made the Marvel comics for America, the Marvel UK comics, the toy line, and of course the cartoon, which is what most people know.
Yeah, unbelievable. It's one of those things where it's like it happened by pure happenstance that those guys just happened to be over in Japan and got wind of what was going on there. And definitely, as somebody who's like, I've never owned anything to do with Diaclone, so even just looking at the pictures of these Diaclone, it gets my mouth watering, to be honest. Oh, they're so nice. Look at that blue Ultra Magnus Delta Magnus.
I'd love to have a I'd love to have a powered convoy to this day. I mean, maybe if it was 20 years ago, it might be affordable, but they're just astronomical prices on them now. And there's all sorts of notes in there, but it's kind of just general stuff. I'm not going to read them all out because we just want to do a kind of general overview. If anyone wants to go back and have a read of the text that's there, pause your screen, you're welcome to. So going on to the next one, you had a deregulated market in the 80s, led to a lot of what they called toy-based cartoons, which basically existed to sell toys. And the writers had to do the best they could, but often beholden to whatever company was in charge, whether it was the Masters of Mattel or Transformers and whatever. There was a glut of a lot of toy shows in the 80s.
There was. And look, they knew what they were doing because, we're still buying these toys. They knew.
I love it. There was a lot of crap, but there was good stuff too, and I love it. It's one of the best times of my life.
Yeah, they were better than what they should have been.
Yes. There was a lot of guys that worked.
We got better than we deserved.
A lot of guys who worked in that 80s animation stuff also worked at like Marvel or DC Comics, and this was like their other job or with other stuff they'd do it. And so you got reasonable, at least B grade comic 70s, 80s B grade comic stories as cartoons for the better shows. But some stuff was absolute trash. But overall there was a lot of cool stuff. Okay, move on to the next one. This one is just showing off a model sheet, and it's actually a fan recreation of a model sheet because it's a digital recolor, but based on the like the black and white sketchy version that was like very degraded and not really available in public other than like 10th generation, I don't know, fax or photocopy or whatever used to be a line on various forums. So someone recreated it, including at the top where it's got the Marvel Productions logo, the Sunbow and Toei up there. And my little note over here just saying the early animation models were by Takara artist Shohei Kohara, based on the actual toys, so they looked more like the toys, and they were later simplified by the lead show animation designer Florio Dero, not just for Megatron, but for all the first year cast. And Dero went on to design most of the original movie characters, and he's the key like background production. Anytime there's weird organic aliens that turn up on the show, he basically pulled them out of his butt, whenever they needed him to.
Very memorable designs, though. Definitely iconic.
And I liked the football helmet Megatron down the bottom left. That was from the commercial on the TV.
Yes, very different to what we got in the end. But he looks pretty cool. Yes. I like the way he holds his fusion cannon. He's actually holding it instead of it just resting.
And he's almost closer to the other gun robo toy that they didn't use, like his head in that. It's almost closer to that toy than the Megatron we eventually got.
Yes. He's very similar to the comic book depiction of Megatron, isn't he? The Marvel Comics one kind of looked a bit like that.
Yeah, the early promo material was like that TV ad and the stuff that went to the Marvel Comics. The Marvel Comics didn't have at first they didn't have the bloody they didn't have the show Bible or the animation stuff. Same in the UK, they got stuffed over there too. They're just like, here's this show, go make some comics. And at some point they're like, are we going to get reference material? And eventually they did get it, but at first there's not. So there's a lot of different looking weird designs, like Soundwave was purple in the Marvel Comics because they didn't know what his proper colors was. This one's just showing as the show went on season 1, you had your core characters, Prime, Megatron, Bumblebee, Starscream, and Daniel and Spike, and we'll be seeing those in some slides soon enough. And these little documents there were cool. They're scans that someone did. That is the actual documents there that someone scanned at some point when they had a hold of them, like from an ex-employee or whatever. And season 2, they got into the triple changes and the what do you call those big robots when there's a little one and you put them together as another one?
Or the combiners. Do you combine them?
That's it, combiners. And this is the same here. See how the colors are really sharp and nice on that? It never looks like that in the show. Someone's done a digital like recreation of that, but they've drawn, just like you get a coloring in book and you color in the lines, that's the animation model. They're just recolored over it to make it look all shiny and nice on your screen. And just a couple of bits of promo art and stuff on the sides there from different sources that I thought looked cool, showing off the triple changes. And they've had the movie, of course, showing off just some cool bits of images and stuff there. You had the Stan Bush soundtrack, you had the new characters, you had your Lionel Stander as Cup, Judd Nelson, and Hot Rod, and old Unsolved Miseries, Robert Stack. I can't solve that mystery right now. That sort of business. Awesome movie. We'll probably do down the track, probably do a whole show just on the movie. I think at some point because it's too much to get into
right
here.
Out of my mouth. Exactly, yeah. It's a whole episode.
Like how cool is that image there? Just concept
art, awesome.
And that's like third generation photocopy or something there of the bloody from the book. That's why it's all crusty, but it still looks impressive. And I love the note down the bottom right. I was reading it earlier when I blown it up on my PC monitor. It says that each of those little rings going around the outside of Unicron is as big as the Earth. Wow. So that was his actual scale as conceived. So even in the movie, he's not quite as big because they couldn't possibly ever fit him properly in the frame with anything in scale as usual with robots and all that. And they had a Scramble City special in Japan, was like an episode showing off Metroplex, Triptychon, and the Combiners, all of whom were basically missing from the movie because they were in the background. They had all the characters and the stuff going, but they had to edit and cut stuff out of the movie, and then things that were meant to be in the show kind of turn up in season 3. But when you go from season 2 to 3 in the movie, a lot of stuff makes no sense. But this episode fills in quite a few things in between that don't make sense.
Yeah, it didn't make sense to a lot of us in the West. No. But if you were lucky enough to be in Japan, it did make sense because it definitely sticks out when you watch the movie for the first time that it seems to be missing a lot of characters. But once again, it'll be an episode into itself to discuss it. Exactly. There's a lot of folks missing in action in that movie.
And the other side of that too is they had characters they were working into Transformers, but like Metroplex started out was meant to be originally part of like the Diaclone line. There's old concept sketches that show before he became that form that basically his chest and features and the folding out to the city. He has all the Scramble City features where the original toy combiners can connect to the ports on his arms on the sides where the guns go, and on the legs you can plug them in, and then the base modes too. But because it became Transformers American, it didn't make sense to have like a Decepticon porting onto Metroplex, so they downplayed those sort of features and stuff. And that's just showing the Autobot city that was in the movie, and it became like they call it city, it's more like a fortress, or like a cavalry type fortress in a strategic location. You got the mountains, the hydro dam next to it, and there was kind of weird stuff in the background at the time. Is this meant to be Metroplex? There's no mention of Metroplex in the movie script at all, but even though the toy was out around that time in the catalogs. But you can actually see on the top left, very top left, there's a little tank drone thing. That's actually Scamper from Metroplex is in there in the illustration. So there were Frankensteining bits of Metroplex's city design into that. But when you get to season 3, you see Metroplex parked out the back of Autobot City all the time. So they're two things, but in the media they still kind of mix up stuff, and it's quite strange. So that's the end of our pre-show.
That's your crash course in Transformers, folks. Yep. Hopefully we brought you up to speed well enough.
Yep. And there is bits of text
Generation
in there, but
Generation 2 is probably an episode in itself.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of G2 personally, but that's a different story for a different time.
Okay, so that one's finished. We're going to go on to our main slideshow, which is our top 4 episodes. We're doing about 4 each, give or take. And we both like to cheat, so we're probably Heels or Decepticons. We've got 2-part episodes in there. So if you go adding them all up, there's quite a few episodes in there. But I'll hand over to you, Mark,
because you've got... though.
Yeah.
Yes. No. I was just going to say, in our defense, when it comes to the cheating accusations, a lot of it is fun to cheat, but also, when I saw a lot of these episodes for the first time, it was on the VHS release where they would combine 2 parts into 1 part. Yes. So I just assumed they were kind of like feature length episodes.
Yeah, they are. They're written that way.
2 parts. Exactly. But yeah, my first pick here. Desertion of the Dinobots. I absolutely love this episode. It's like neck and neck as my favorite episode for season 2. I won't say what the other one is yet because I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, it's a brilliant episode. So essentially, the plot of the episode is the Autobots and the Decepticons both start to malfunction because they're running out of a critical element to their survival known as cybertonium, which can only be found on Cybertron. Um, of course, this is something that was never mentioned before this episode or ever mentioned again after this episode. But cybertonium is really, really essential for Transformers to live. So essentially, what's happening is they're not able to transform properly. They're running out of energy. They can't fight. Everything's going wrong for them. So the plot of the episode is essentially that the Dinobots are sent to Cybertron to obtain some of this cybertonium and bring it back to the Autobots so they can be cured of what ails them and set up again to fight the good fight. Of course, because it's the Dinobots, things get really screwy. The Dinobots decide to, usurp the Optimus Prime's command. They go on their own mission. They just want to stay on Cybertron. They don't bother trying to get the Cybertonium. So Spike and Carly go after them in Carly's car. They take the Decepticon space bridge and they go to track down the Dinobots. And a whole load of cool stuff ensures from there. And it's a big deal episode in terms of the lore of Transformers as well, because in the second part there's a moment where Spike and Carly are on Cybertron and they discover this like library that essentially plays a big giant DVD for them that shows the history of the Cybertronian wars. So you get to find out for the first time, a bit of the history of the Transformers, which is really interesting. It's a really interesting aspect to the episode. But even just to backtrack a little bit, the main kind of pull of this episode for me is just that it's such a Dinobot heavy episode. Obviously, it goes with the title, Desertion of the Dinobots, but they are the stars of the whole story, and it was just a great way to showcase them. Like, there's great action scenes with them fighting the Decepticons in the airport, and they crush everybody. They take on Devastator at the space bridge. You also get to see a lot of footage of them in their robot modes as well, which you didn't always get to see throughout the rest of the series. It's just a really, really quality episode, and it feels really well written as well. Like, sometimes, and I'm sure we'll get into it later, with some Transformers episodes, it can be a bit hit and miss depending on who was writing the episode for that week or whatever. You could be getting gold or you could be getting a turd. You just don't know what you're going to get. But I think it's Errol Kress, I think, who wrote this one. He did a really good job of just doing a solid story that kind of pushes a particular group of characters in the Dinobots, but also manages to explain a lot of backstory and lore of the Transformers universe as well. So that's why I have this as my pick.
I like that. Also, the Dinobots are, they're kind of morons most of the time, but Swoop seems to be the most intelligent one of this one, helping out Daniel and Carly in that when they get lost on Cybertron.
That's right. He's the only member of the team that doesn't get captured by Shockwave's forces. He
seems to be the least selfish of them.
Definitely. And yeah, he's definitely a bit smarter than your average Dinobot. He outsmarts and gets around a few of those ancient traps that they have to navigate in Cybertron as well. So he definitely earns his stripes with of course, as a kid, and I'm kind of it's going a little bit off topic, but I may as well say it now. I watched this episode all the time as a kid on video, and Swoop is one of my favorite characters, obviously. But they did not sell a Swoop toy over on this side of the world. Swoop
do you know why? Because they were all broken, Mark. They were all broken. You couldn't find one that wasn't broken. I've owned 2 ever, and they're both broken the exact same way because of the flaw in the molds when they designed it.
Yeah, it's just I'm sure there's a lot of disappointed kids on this side of the ocean who are like, he's like, they get four of the Dinobots and then they just want that fifth one, and it's like, no, sorry,
it's kind of ironic because the only Dinobot I ever had as a kid was Swoop, and he got lost years ago, but he also broke terribly, just like they all do.
Wings break, the beak breaks. There they are. And like I was saying earlier, you get to see the Dinobots a lot in their robot modes in this story as well. And don't get me wrong, the draw of the Dinobots is the fact that they are robot dinosaurs, but they all look really badass in their robot modes. Like
I got those big Giga Power ones. They look great in the robot mode.
Exactly. And even like there you see Slag there with the horns coming out from behind him, and when Grimlock's in his robot mode, he just looks like a badass, so I'll always like that about this episode as well. It's got so many little character moments that it's just, and not just with the Dinobots, like even the whole deal when the Autobots and the Decepticons are malfunctioning, and you see the whole assault kind of disintegrating. The Decepticons, they're trying to rip off some power plant, and the Autobots show up to stop them, and everybody's malfunctioning, nobody can fight. I think Megatron transforms into his gun mode, and Starscream goes to fire him point blank in Optimus Prime's face, and he misses. It's just there's so many cool little moments in it. Or Jazz
there's so much cool action in this multi-part episode, and there's a lot of bits I didn't put in those frames just because I wanted to get more Dinobots in there.
No, it's a great episode. It's a great episode. I was going to say, like, just during that whole kind of smudge between the Autobots and Decepticons, where everybody's just falling apart, and Jazz is trying to play the music, and nothing's working. Mirage is trying to turn invisible, but he's not, so people are just shooting him. It's just hilarious. It's really well done and kind of well played out. But of course, the big MacGuffin of the episode, the Cybertonium, the unobtainium of the Transformers universe. Cybertonium it's never mentioned again ever.
No, it's Energon after that, isn't it?
It's only just Energon. Like, once they got their fix of Cybertonium, it must last like a couple of million years.
Like, first they need the Energon, like, for, I don't know, general energy needs, but like, and then later episodes they're just like drinking the cubes. Like, they change it up all the time.
What Energon is changes quite often throughout the series.
It changes episode to episode in that first season, all over the place.
Exactly.
So this one is, I'll just bring it up here so you can do it better. The Autobop, written by David Wise, kicks off with a bunch of people outside a nightclub. Some b-boys come out and lay down some cardboard and start spinning around like lunatics, and people are lining up to go in this club like it's like the hottest nightclub in town. But what they don't know is that they're being hypnotized into being like, evil slaves for the Decepticons and causing mischief around the town. But yeah, I like the themes of the just getting to see like Blaster and Soundwave is really what it's. I mean, the whole episode themes around music and the nightclub, but getting Blaster and Soundwave like versus each other, that's the thing that makes it stand out for me, as well as just being a fairly strange episode otherwise. It's like it's not it stands out as being kind of weird when you watch it. There's bits that are really cool and bits that are strange, like the guys goes from the nightclub to this like building construction zone, and like they're hypnotizing the people to do their bidding. Blaster and Trax like stumble onto it and have to go and stop their plans. And that one, just seeing these guys. This is why I like getting to see these guys like facing off. And unlike in the Headmaster show, they don't kill each other and rip each other's heads off. They just fight, and they get to fight again another day. But the soundtrack too is cool. Like, the music gets a bit annoying the 10th time you heard it, but the little jingles and the soundtrack and stuff in it is like really cool and helps make the episode. And just the whole thing of like the seeing the people in the club, none of them clothes make any sense. Like, some of them are punk, some of them are dressed up, to go on the dance floor, and some of them look like they're on Skid Row. Like the outfits are just such a weird mishmash of what they put in there.
And I suppose though that kind of works though for the plot of this episode, because isn't one of the things
well,
that
it's half street people and half regular people going in, I guess.
Exactly. But I was like, like you said, the episode is very, very strange. like the plot in general. Like when you kind of think of the the Decepticons taking over a nightclub, essentially, it sounds crazy, but until you actually watch it play out. But one thing I love about
this episode, why couldn't they just broadcast it across the town? Why do they need a nightclub?
I mean, like Dancetron. Like, could you make it any more obvious? But even
that's on the left there. That's the actual big machine that Blast is pointing at. That has the gold speakers as the Dancetron. Looks like Dance Dance Revolution or something.
Exactly, and I love that they're constantly there's a lot of name dropping of like famous popular musical acts, like like they're like, oh, we got to make like Michael Jackson and beat it, or oh man, if you know Blaster, then I know Prince. They're just name dropping all these like but it's like the writer, like David Wise, he's just like, what do the young people like? Yeah, Michael Jackson. Let's work in Michael Jackson there.
Yeah, it just feels so much of the era of like the pop and dance stuff, and that's the other thing I like about it. It's a bit meta and goes outside just Transformers to the pop culture in general of the time. And I think well, probably these two characters and Jazz are also fairly popular outside of Transformers fiction to people who aren't even fans, that just know them in pop culture in general as these kind of 80s characters themed around music. I mean, Soundwave's a spy, but he also has the audio, capabilities.
The sash culture.
Yeah, and I love the gimmicks too, like on the toys. Like I've got the original ones of these and reissues, and the little popping the cassettes out. It never gets old, popping the cassettes out of the chest. Just love it. Okay, we've got Dark Awakening, one of Mark's choices. This is from season 3, so we've got post-movie Galvatron, Magnus, Rodimus, and all that.
Yeah, we've skipped ahead here. So I suppose, first of all, folks, we probably forgot to mention it when we were kind of skimming through our brief history of Transformers. So a little spoiler here. Optimus Prime dies in Transformers the movie.
Giving us away.
Okay, so as in he's dead, okay? He's not alive anymore.
Dead.
He's dead.
Except for this episode.
Except for this episode. And this
terrorize
one
the kids again.
And you know what, Johnny? Out of pure coincidence, this was the first Transformers episode I watched after the movie. So talk about raising and dashing my hopes.
Because it's near the end of the short period of time.
I know, but just on by pure luck on how the video was rented from the shop. This was the episode I got, and it blew my mind. So okay, folks, just to take you through the plot of this. So the episode starts off with the Autobots on the run from the Decepticons, and it's the usual thing that's happening when the Autobots are on the run from the Decepticons. The Decepticons are just kicking their asses. The Autobots need to get out of the jam, so they actually repeat a little trick that they used in the movie where they detonate their main ship so that a shuttle can escape undetected. And they drift through space in their little shuttle, and they come across this Autobot mausoleum, which contains all the bodies essentially of the Autobots that were killed during the events of Transformers the movie. So the team of Autobots, they get out of the ship and they board this mausoleum, and they discover that the tomb of Optimus Prime, the former Autobot leader, is empty. And upon discovering this, they later quickly discover that Optimus Prime is in fact not dead. He is alive. Which,
sort of alive.
As a child watching this, when you're watching this as a kid, it really blows your mind. So there's a whole big schmoz. The Decepticons turn up at the mausoleum. There's a big shootout with the Autobots. Prime saves the day. He essentially scares off the Decepticons because they're like, "What the hell? This dead guy is alive."
And point blank, getting some revenge.
Yeah, he does, yeah, and that really shocked me. So First of all,
it's the first thing he does when they see him. He just shoots Hot Rod.
He shoots Hot Rod, and I think it illustrates really this episode what a weak leader Hot Rod or Rodimus could be at times, because he doesn't even hesitate to hand over the Matrix to Optimus. Like, as soon as he realizes Optimus is alive, he literally just opens up his chest, he pulls out the Matrix, and he's like, "Here you go." And now I'm back to being Hot Rod. And then Prime is essentially like, "Oh, thanks for that." And then he shoots him point blank, in the chest.
It's so nasty.
So it is so nasty. So essentially, folks, what all this is really turning out to be is Optimus isn't the Optimus we all know and love. He's essentially been resurrected by the Quintessons, and they've made him evil. And he's going to lead the rest of the Autobots into a trap where the Quintessons are going to use their like gunship battle bases that are hidden in an asteroid field to blow them up, essentially. So the plot is that evil Optimus Prime is going to lead all the Autobots into this Quintesson trap, and they'll all be destroyed. So then, thankfully, Hot Rod, who survived being shot point blank in the chest earlier in the episode, is able to lead the team of Ultra Magnus and RC and Springer and all the other guys to kind of go after Prime and stop him. But it leads to a big showdown between Hot Rod and Optimus Prime. They have a big fight. Hot Rod eventually gets the better of Prime, and Prime ends up kind of, getting some of his old personality back, remembering that he is actually a good guy and a good robot at heart. He gives the Matrix back to Hot Rod, who becomes Rodimus again, and Prime very courageously then sacrifices himself by driving his ship into the Quintesson base and blowing it up to end the episode. So
he's definitely
talk
dead
about
again.
He's definitely dead again. He's definitely not coming back for 2 more episodes. He's definitely dead. But
he's definitely got an arm off.
You wanted yeah, and that arm off's going to be forgotten about, by the way. If he does happen to come back, he'll have 2 arms again. But it's one of those episodes like
other episodes where they turn him into an alligator. His arm ends up on a turret, and it's kind of funny because there's other one his arm's missing.
It's like the Alicon.
Yeah. But I like that he's basically a zombie in this story, and they put all that detail in there just to scare the kids again.
Brilliant! It's so good. It's so good. It's an emotional roller coaster ride. Like, it's only like a 20-minute long episode. They could have easily made it a 2-parter because the story is so big. Like, it's such a big deal to have Optimus Prime back on screen again. And it's just. Yeah, it really got. I'll not lie. As a youngling, I did shed a tear at the very end of the episode when he drove the ship into the Quintesson.
Yeah, it's very sad.
Trap. It is very sad, and then it shows kind of a silhouette of his image before the credits comes up. Like it is like when you're a kid, you're kind of like, oh wow, I thought he was alive, but now he's dead again.
And the strange thing is, behind the scenes, it's a well written story and it's quite emotional, but it only really exists for a cynical reason, where they killed him in the movie. There was backlash about killing this iconic character. They didn't realize how popular he was. So it's just a toy show. Who cares? And the writers and the staff and people told them, no, don't kill him. Hasbro ignored him. Later on, they were told, bring him back again. But when they did bring him back again, they just kill him again. I'm like, just nonsense. Just traumatize the kids all over again.
Exactly. And all in the space of about like 19 or 20 minutes. It's over and done with before you've even time to process what's just happened.
It's just very strange the way it all worked out. Like in one of the versions of the Transformers movie and some of the VHS versions, there's a voiceover that goes, "And Optimus Prime will return," like effectively saying he's like not dead and stuff. Like, so they kind of flip-flopped on that a few times. What do we got? Secret of Omega Supreme. I'll just bring it up for a second there. You can see it. This one's one of my all-time favorites because I love Omega Supreme, and probably, I guess I love him because of this episode, or I don't love him just because he's Omega Supreme. Because I like all versions of the toy. I like just giant robots, even if I don't know what they're called or what they're from. Just your Japanese 70s mecha and all that stuff. I love this episode because you get to see Omega have a backstory. It's a whole episode about him. there's it told by a flashback where he's sitting down on the grass with Optimus Prime, talking about days back in Cybertron before the pre-war days. Also before they formalized more of the canon stories, because there's a lot of contradictory stuff in this. Like in some episodes, Megatron invents the Constructicons, another episode, the Constructicons invent Megatron. That doesn't really make sense. But Megatron has this weird machine. It's in the middle there, that kind of spaghetti-looking thing in silver, and it's like a mind control thing that I don't know if it turns them evil or it switches their allegiance from Autobot to Decepticon. It's a bit unclear because the Constructicons are Decepticons in this episode, but they're like just pre-war, everyday building guys. They're not bad or evil. They're not destroying things until Megatron gets the machine, puts it on them, and they go from being good friends with Omega Supreme to laying this trap where on the bottom middle there, Omega's sitting down, all that rubble in the background. The Constructicons come and trash the Crystal City, which Omega Supreme was there to guard. And they were good friends, but he becomes traumatized, pretty much PTSD for a robot. So what happens to him, because his best friends in the world came and trashed the only thing he had to guard, which was his job at the time. It's like, imagine your best friend turned up to your work and just with dynamite just blew the building up and went by. It's basically what happens. But later in this episode, it moves from the flashbacks on Cybertron, where they do have a pretty kick-ass knockdown fight, but it's kind of a prelude to the second fight they have. In the present day, there's this asteroid thing they're looking at on the monitor in the middle of the screen there. This asteroid's coming to Earth, and it's it's a hazard. They've got to stop it or intercept it. Megatron wants to get after it for some kind of resources or use it for some nefarious purpose. The Autobots want to stop it from, basically killing people on Earth if it crashes into buildings and things. But it turns out the asteroid, which is rock, hatches this metal monster creature thing, and it goes on a rampage around the city, starts trying to destroy stuff, but it's an innocent creature. It's a newborn baby, and it doesn't know what it's doing. And the first thing that happens is you got two factions of warring idiots attacking it on both sides, and it just gets confused and leads to more chaos. Omega has another fight with Devastator, and this time it's straight away, unlike the earlier fight in the flashback where they pretty much sucker punch him and destroy the city and run away. He hasn't seen them for years. He's PTSD. The moment he sees them, he just goes ballistic and starts smashing the hell out of them, throws them into the mountain, buries them with his big cannon arm, and then just leaves them. And he goes up into the atmosphere of the Earth. The creature's hatched out, but the little egg thing that Megatron's looking at through those crazy purple binocular things, the egg thing is also its source of food, so it has to go back there to eat as part of its natural cycle, and that's what Omega Supreme helps it do instead of killing it or whatever that potentially would have had to do. And it gets to the end, and you can see in that last one before the credits there, he's actually got a tear in his eye, which is like he's a stoic, alien, emotionless robot who always speaks in a very strange way, like he will say things like "death imminent" and just little staccato, broken rhythm words. Except for in this episode, he talks to Optimus Prime in actual sentences, and you find out he's just completely fucked up from all this trauma of his best friends smashing up years ago. And after this episode, he goes back to just talking in the broken rhythm again. He never again talks in the sentences again. He just stays as this kind of utilitarian monolith who's always in the background. He's always alone and just standing around and just turns up for random episodes in the future. But he's always like their space taxi or spaceship when they can't get to the space bridge. But he doesn't really get this kind of attention again, one-on-one dialogue and talking with them as a character. Most of the time, he's just a free transport for them.
Yeah, he was often just served as transport after this episode, wasn't he, Omega? He rarely was showcased again. Like you get the odd episode where he did land somewhere and he can't help them because he needs to recharge because
he needs energy and
he won't be able
sarcasm
to
not appreciated. And that episode's why I put that little legend scale Prime with the big one there. And I've got the other versions still. Got the Fans Toy Omega, got a Planet X Omega. I've got about half a dozen different bloody Omegas. Just one of my all-time favorite toys and characters. It's just so good.
Awesome, man.
Go to the next one. We got a Mark episode, Call of the Primitives. This is in season 3. So you got Terracons, Predacons in orange, and Trypticon and Skylinks and Dinobots.
Yeah, this is a great example of an episode that has an amazing setup, an amazing action, amazing animation, but then it has a bit of a popcorn fart of an ending. Like the ending is a bit of a dud, yep. But we'll get there. So essentially, this episode revolves around the creator. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack in this episode. So first of all, you find out that
little monkey guy
was actually Unicron was actually created by a being called Primacron, who looks like a little monkey guy wearing he's wearing like a little astronaut suit. So this guy apparently created Unicron, and Unicron has failed him as a creation because Unicron betrayed him and he went out by himself eating planets when he wasn't supposed to. So, like I said, there's a lot to unpack there. So this guy, he decides he's going to make another creature to do his bidding, but this time the creature will be made of pure energy, and the creature is going to be called Primacron. So the way Primacron differs from Unicron is he just goes and kind of engulfs planets and sucks all the energy dry from a planet, and if there's anybody kind of on the planet at the time, their energy gets drained as well. So
just a more efficient killing machine.
Exactly. He's like the T1000 to Unicron's T800. You know, it's that level of improvement we're talking about here. But so yeah, look, the Autobots, they're involved in a battle with the Decepticons. It's pretty much the entire season 3 cast. It feels like it's got like nearly all the combiners and this and that on the battlefield. So all of a sudden the Dinobots and the Predacons and the Terracons all just randomly stop fighting each other. And they all join together along with all the other animal and dinosaur-based Decepticons and Autobots to go on this journey across the galaxy to find essentially this weird, like, cave energy being who tells them that Primacron has been created and that they're the only force in the universe that's able to destroy him. So this leads to, you know, it's just... I'm getting like there's so much going on in this episode. So this leads to
it's a wacky episode. It's a very wacky episode.
It's a wacky episode. So yeah, Primacron sends a creation which is called
Cornatron.
He's the energy monster. Yeah, he's got and he attacks all the primitive Autobot and Decepticons. So he takes out the Predacons in a really memorable moment. He takes out the Terracons. He takes out the Dinobots, except for Grimlock, who manages to kind of survive happenstancely. And then Cornatron ends up turning on his creator, Primacron, and he's going to eat him. He's going to consume his energy until Grimlock shows up and presses a switch.
Ragdolls him.
Yeah, he presses, like, he turns up. He ragdolls little Primacron. He's like, I'm going to sort this out. And he goes over to a computer and he hits one button to switch off the controls. And that makes Cornatron kind of disappear and die, essentially. So they have this episode that tears up everything that you've ever known about. Because, like, if you think about it, like, nobody ever thought that Unicron was like somebody's invention or somebody's creation. Like, it really kind of minimized or made him a lot smaller than what you thought he was, especially if you're reading the comics and you think he's like some type of god. You can
tell they just made it up for this one episode because they don't ever reference it again. They just
made it up. Exactly. It's never referenced again. But to be honest, with this story or with this episode, it's more about the action and the animation for me than it is about the story itself.
And it has different animation in this too. The mix of the studios, the Predacons are drawn very differently than you see them otherwise. And I also like the fun little thing. Before you see the little monkey guy, he pretends he's the other guy on the frame on the left, the blue guy. It's a very Wizard of Oz thing where he's hiding in this little room behind the curtain and they find out it's this little tiny guy.
So bizarre.
Yeah, it's very strange. And he's such a strange looking creature.
And like you never find out what type of alien race he is, how he was affiliated. It's just like, no, this is the guy. He supposedly created Unicron. Now he's created this energy.
I'd love to know how.
Monster.
Did he get contractors like the Death Star, or how did he build it?
Yeah, it's so. But like I said, it's the story is almost superfluous to what you're actually seeing in front of your eyes, because there's just so much nice animation. There's great action scenes. It's great seeing the kind of Dinobots and the Predacons mix it up, because you didn't really get to see that. Cool. Exactly. You know, there's very cool visuals of just all those animal and dinosaur guys just all kind of lining up together. It's kind of the type of thing where it's almost the story that a kid would come up with playing with his toys on the floor. It feels like that type of
it's
rhythm.
Cool seeing the Terracons, because some of those later wave toys only turn up very briefly in a couple of episodes. Some of them turn up in the Headmasters anime too, but there's just a little blink and you miss some appearances. So it's cool to actually see them get a kind of spotlight in this episode.
Definitely. Memorable episode for sure.
Now, speaking of memorable episodes, we got Megatron's Master Plan, another Mark episode.
Yeah, and this is another one where we're kind of cheating a little bit, because it is a two-parter. But once again, in my defense, I watched it on video and it was all melded into one episode, so I didn't know. So this is probably one of the more kind of like normal Transformers plot episodes that we have on the list. Like, the plot's fairly straightforward compared to some of the other stuff we've just discussed. So essentially, there is a plot by the Decepticons to trick the humans of Century City into thinking that it's the Autobots that are actually evil and the Decepticons are good. And the only reason that people think the opposite is because they've been consuming what Megatron dubs Autobot propaganda, so that the Autobots have essentially been using propaganda to trick the masses into thinking that they're the good guys. So Megatron hatches this plan with a corrupt businessman / politician called Sean Berger, who, by the way, is like probably my favorite human Transformers character. I absolutely love Sean Berger. He is such a bad dude. Like, he's just a horrible guy.
Megatron cradles him like a baby.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. So Sean Berger and the Decepticons, they film footage of the Decepticons disguised as Autobots stealing oil from an oil field.
Yeah.
And then they broadcast this footage during Autobot Appreciation Day, which of course shames the Autobots and
bring up there because it's got the Starscream as the
yeah, like Starscream dressing up as Optimus Prime, and he has a great line like that this mask would fool Prime's own creator. You know, it's a very memorable line. So essentially they broadcast footage of these Decepticons cosplaying as Autobots, but of course all the humans believe that it's actually really the Autobots that are stealing oil, and they essentially demand that the Autobots be exiled from Earth forever.
Yep.
Which is
forever.
Which the Autobots agree to this really, really easily. Like, they don't try and fight their case. They don't try and argue anything. They're just like, well, look, if the humans say we gotta go, we gotta go. So they board a spaceship.
This in the stupid live action movies too.
Exactly. So like they board a spaceship which the humans have built for them. Don't know why they couldn't have built them a spaceship a bit earlier in the series, but we'll get to that later. So they board this spaceship and they think they're going back to Cybertron, but back on Earth, Megatron actually alters the flight path to send the ship into the sun.
He's such a bastard.
He's such a bastard, and I just love the simplicity of how he does that. He walks up to Talatron 1 and points his cannon at the screen, and a little laser comes out and changes the destination from Cybertron to Sun. and
the best thing is
the Autobots.
The best thing is right after that, they just go on a crazy rampage and start destroying the city as soon as Autobots are gone.
It's brilliant because they don't even waste any time trying to, let's
they have
like
a parade
they don't try
first.
and
they did have their parade.
Yes, they have a parade, and then Megatron holds a press conference where he announces that he's going to he's going to take over the Earth, and that all the humans have been duped. And it's also hilarious because Sean Berger evil Sean Burger, the traitor, is himself betrayed by Megatron because Megatron had planned or had promised he was going to rule 2 cities, but he doesn't get to rule 2 cities. Instead, he goes to work in the Decepticon energy factory, where he's heckled by the other humans who are enslaved. It's hilarious stuff, and I don't even know what it is. It's like a power plant or something, and they've all the humans enslaved.
Yeah, it's like a power plant, and then forced to basically mine for the Energon from the oil. And if you don't think Megatron's a bad enough bastard, he even puts poor bloody Chip with the wheelchair to work.
He's so bad. Like when poor Chip escapes, he sends like Thrust after him to hunt him down and bring him back.
Yeah, that's an explosion on the bottom right there. That's an explosion that starts coming through the ceiling and exploding the whole room around him.
We can't let Chip get away. Though I suppose, to be fair, Chip has proven to be a thorn in the Decepticons' side many times.
They were idiots for actually having him in there, because he proves to be the guy that stuffs them up.
So, and anyway, in the meantime, the Autobots who are on board the ship heading towards the sun, they get wind of the fact that they're on a collision course for the sun, so they're able to get, I think, Cosmos to try and use a tractor beam to turn them around, and then when that doesn't work, they're able to use trail breakers, force shields to protect them and bring them back to Earth.
Yellow effect, they're burning.
Exactly. So the Autobots, they managed to get back to Earth. There's a big showdown with the Decepticons, and they drive them off. It probably should be mentioned in the meantime as well that Spike had found the undoctored footage of the Decepticons, planning and scheming and impersonating the Autobots. So the Autobots' names had been cleared in the meantime. So once they make their triumphant return, they kick the Decepticons' asses, essentially. The Decepticons retreat, and all's right in the world again. And it's one of those, the plot, it's a fairly kind of simplistic plot, but I don't know, it's another one of those episodes or stories where everybody kind of gets a chance to shine. There's good interplay between Megatron and Starscream, and Megatron and
How many guns does Autobots have? Everyone's got 2 guns when they come back, like Tombstone style. They're
brilliant.
Like, that's it. We're enough of your shit. We're running out of town.
And they do a great kind of crawling shot where you literally get to see all the Autobots lined up pointing their 2 guns.
I tried to get as much of that as I could. Look, even like little Beachcomber, who's like a pacifist, he's like stuff you just have to.
Well, look, they were almost melted in the sun.
You try to put us in the sun.
Now it's personal.
Yeah. And I love Brawn on the side there. Brawn's just like, oh man, he looks so mad.
Yeah, very memorable episode. And Sean Burger, at the very end of the episode, Sean Burger vows to make amends, and he's going to disband his private army, and he's going to be a good man. And we never find out what actually did happen to Sean Burger, but he probably did a long time in jail, I'd imagine.
I would hope so.
Or maybe he didn't, because he's rich, so he probably just got away with everything.
Yeah, for sure. I like how Chip gets to be like useful in this episode. He's usually more useful than Daniel or Spike in any of the episodes, really. He's usually the brains that actually solves things rather than creating more problems. And I love that you get to see just so many of the Autobots in this episode in that big panorama fight. They're just like, here's every guy that was ever in the show, bang, 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 shooting for 30 seconds.
Boom. That's a great shot.
It's real like spaghetti western style, and it's like right in your face. Love it.
I'll make a nice print.
Yeah, that's cool. It's just a fun episode. So this one, what do we got? Key to Vector Sigma, written by David Wise. Oops, sorry, I clicked ahead one. This one's really fun. This one's a fun episode. There's lots of cool, 2-part episode. There's lots of cool action in it, but there's a lot of lore building in this that kind of affects a lot of not just this show, but pretty much any future Transformers stuff. They kind of got stuff from this episode. Like they go. It starts with the Decepticons. They're grabbing a bunch of vehicles off the road that they turn basically into drones, as in they don't have a mind. They're Transformers, but they don't have a mind of their own. But they're called the Stunticons, and they make them like the evil version of Autobots, basically, because the Decepticons usually flying in the air supremacy, and the Autobots usually on the road. So that they go and create like evil type versions of Autobots, but they have no personality. So they go to Cybertron via the space bridge. Megatron has a little golden ticket looking thing there, that gold key is the actual key to Vector Sigma. Vector Sigma turns out to be like this kind of supercomputer or intelligence on Cybertron. In later lore, they kind of link Vector Sigma into Primus as being part of him and the planet and other stuff, but none of that stuff existed when this episode was made. It was just like a supercomputer personality thing, and it's able to give them personalities when it zaps them with that weird pink energy. And the Autobots decide that they need to have guys that can fly, seeing as they all could fly in the first episode, then they forgot by about episode 3 or 4, they all stopped flying. So they decide to build some aerial bots out of planes. They have the same problem. They got no personalities, they're just drones. They also go to Vector Sigma and Cybertron, but they fly there in Omega Supreme because they haven't got a space bridge. But it just leads up to, like, you got 2 new factions within each team, and they both can turn into big kick-ass combining robots, and that's the sell point. It's like, we've got these combiners and we need to show them off, so you want to buy these bloody toys. But it's fun episodes. I just love the action. I love what we get to see down on that bottom frame there. Minosaur is fighting Superion, and then Omega Supreme just turns up, and they both like team up and just like smash them into the mountain and that. And I just found it a fun episode for like cool action, new characters. Didn't really care for the aerial bots when I was a kid, but I do like them a lot more now. I was always a Stunticon Minosaur guy, and I just love like just seeing, just crazy stunts and cars smashing into stuff, and like Minosaur, the trucks like smashing into rocks, and they're flying. They go into a military base, and they like drive through the whole military base and just smash the whole thing up, and then just take off. And all the military guys are, oh, Autobots turn into cars, Decepticons and planes. They must have been Autobots. So then when the actual Autobots turn up, all the army starts fighting them. And Prime's like, whoa, hold your horses. That wasn't us. That was some other guys. They're like, whatever. So so that leads to, like more trouble on Earth for them. So Megatron's plans, they get more guys in their team, but it sows more distrust between the humans and the Autobots. Again, like trying to just mess things up for them. But it backfires on them as usual. But what do you think of these ones, Mark? I just find it such fun. Even if they're kind of silly episodes, they're very fun.
It's a great two-parter, and I have to say I would agree with you. I was also more on Team Stunticon than Team Aerial Bot. I always just thought they were like a little bit cooler. This is kind of going back to the one of your previous episodes. You picked the one we mentioned where Omega. This is an example of Omega being used as a kind of utility character. They use Omega in this episode to actually get the Cybertron
in the background.
Exactly, and then he just comes back at the end to save the day. So he's used as needed for the good of the plot. But it's a great episode, and like you say, it kind of expands the lore a lot as well when you're finding out about Vector Sigma.
I've watched these two so many times.
Yes, yeah, and there's it's not on our list, but we might talk about it someday. And there's a great kind of follow-up episode to this where the aerial bots go back in time, and you get to find out even more about the lore of Cybertron and the history of Transformers. So the key to Vector Sigma is actually a fairly significant story point in the entire series, because like you say, you're introducing these 2 new factions of both the Stunticons and the aerial bots, while simultaneously kind of building on the history and the lore of the Transformers as well. So no, it's for all the silliness that's in it, and there is a lot of silliness in it, as there is with most Transformers episodes, it's still a very significant and kind of weighty episode in the sense that it means a lot to the overall.
Poor Omega gets trashed also, like in that on the very left middle. He's completely trashed and pulled apart in one of the episodes.
Yeah, he gets battered. He gets absolutely battered. But it's a brilliant episode, I have to say.
I'll move on to the next one. Oh, that was just some of my favorite silly frames. This one.
Hilarious to see Rumble stealing. I don't even know if it is an F1 car. It's probably like a futuristic, or what was supposed to be futuristic.
It is a real car. Yeah, it is a real car.
Oh, cool.
but yeah, I didn't know that back then. But yeah, you can look it up. There is actually a real car that's based on. As are most of the jets for the aerial bots. Okay, so we got a Mark episode. This is, I've missed the title, but we know what this is.
I know what this is. It's the original How It All Began.
More than meets the eye.
It's More Than Meets the Eye. Officially, it's More Than Meets the Eye parts 1 to 3, but it was introduced to me once again on video as one continuous episode, and the name of the episode was actually called Arrival from
was
Cybertron.
Made as a pilot.
Exactly. And look, I suppose it's a big deal from a story point of view. It's how everything all begins, but it's also just as a fan of the show in general, it's a really great way of introducing you to all the characters and to the actual situation that's going on. Like, as a fan, it's really cool just to see those moments on Cybertron. It's cool to see characters like Wheeljack, Bumblebee, Jazz, Soundwave, the Seekers. It's great to see them in their Cybertronian modes.
Yeah.
And to actually see like the Seekers look cool transforming into those like triangular tetrajets.
Yeah, the tetrajets.
You know, Wheeljack looks really cool in his floating kind of cab mode, and I love kind of Bumblebee and Jazz and their kind of hovercraft modes.
Yeah, and
it's great just having those kind of glimpses. Exactly, they have. And just the whole you kind of really get a sense of desperation from the Autobots situation. Like, they're the ones that are kind of going to be driven off world.
Yeah.
You know, I know Prime says at the start of the very beginning of the show that unless a new supply of energy is found, that nobody's going to win the war. But the impression I always got was that the Decepticons are like kicking your asses. Like, it's really you guys just need a new source of energy.
They're losing the civil war. They're also running out of energy and resources.
Yeah, exactly. So the Autobots, this team of Autobots decide to leave their home planet of Cybertron in search of a new energy source. Megatron and the Decepticons get wind of what's going on, and they follow them in their own spacecraft. There's a big hullabaloo. They board the Autobot spacecraft. The Autobot spacecraft is the Ark, and the Decepticon spacecraft is the Nemesis. So the
big flying
Decepticons,
cheese Dorito.
Exactly. Yeah. So the Decepticons they board the Ark. There's a big schmoz, a really big kick-ass fight where everybody's punching everybody.
Yeah.
And there's loads of animation.
There's a lot of breakdancing going on in that fight and wrestling drop kicks. If you look at the bottom frame.
Oh, definitely. It's them. Yeah,
it's Soundwave fights, not one, not two, but three guys at the same time and actually kicks their ass.
Yeah, he does. You really get the impression that Soundwave is like a top-notch fighter in these kind of opening moments.
He's doing kicks and everything.
There's the big fight, and this causes the ship to stray off course, and it gets pulled into Earth's atmosphere, where it's dragged down and crashes into a volcano. So for 4 million years or something like that, the ship sits wedged in a volcano. Then the volcano erupts. This causes Teletran 1, which is the Autobot's ship's computer, to come back online.
Unless you read the comic, they call it Auntie in the comic.
That's right, Auntie. Yeah. So Teletran 1 basically revives all the Autobots. Well, actually, it revives the Decepticons first. Then
first.
The Autobots
it's not a very smart AI.
No, he's not very smart AI at all. In fact, just to go off topic a bit, in that episode you were talking about earlier with Omega Supreme and the monster inside the asteroid, Teletran 1 knows that the asteroid is an egg and doesn't bother telling the Autobots till after the egg hatches. So that's really bad AI computer, right there. It's definitely not as good as the Bat computer. Like, if I had a choice, I'd pick the Bat computer over Teletran 1.
I'd probably go Bat computer over a TARDIS or Teletran 1 because they're always playing up. They're more hassle.
Exactly. So anyway, the Autobots are revived, the Decepticons are revived, and then there's a series of fights trying to gain the upper hand on Earth. But the whole kind of 3 episodes all build to this crescendo where the Decepticons have constructed a new ship that they're going to be able to pilot off Earth and bring their energy back to Cybertron, and it all ends in a big showdown between the Autobots and the Decepticons outside the kind of mountainous base where the Decepticons are constructing the ship. The Autobots don't succeed in stopping the Decepticons from leaving, it's only because Mirage actually sneaks onto the ship at the end that he's able to use his invisibility cloak.
I'll go ahead because he's there.
Yeah,
there he is.
He's there. There he is. So he sneaks onto the ship, and sabotages it, so the ship will crash land. There's also a great moment. There's actually several great moments, between Megatron and Starscream in these episodes. There's
they shoot
the
each
very
other
first
there.
time they shoot each other. There's also, like, at the very beginning of the episode, or the very beginning of the whole story, they instantly establish that there's a kind of a rivalry between Starscream and Megatron. It's just set up really nicely, but it ends so perfectly in that episode, because just as the Decepticons think that they're getting off world, Starscream tries to blow Megatron away, and if it wasn't for the
just tries to
timely
shoot him
kind
in the
of
back, straight point blank in the back.
Exactly. And if it wasn't for Mirage causing the whole sabotage thing, then who knows what would have happened there? Maybe Starscream would have got
might have become the
drop
leader
on
then.
him there, and then he might have become the leader. Then we can only
and
speculate.
Then he tries it again in the movie, of course.
Yeah, it doesn't go as well that time, but
he'll
try it a few times throughout the series.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He never makes a secret of it. But later on in the shows, you think, oh man, what a bastard! Why doesn't he get rid of him? And then Megatron's like, well, that's the way of the Decepticons. It's like whoever fights and gets to the top, they get to lead by any means.
Exactly. And I think there's even a line from Megatron. I was just going to say, I think there's a line from Megatron during that moment where he actually says, beware Starscream, because if you dispose of me, there will always be someone else waiting to dispose of you, which really kind of sums up the Decepticons. But I see here in your screen grabs, you've got some of those iconic moments.
I love that big fight on the dam. The dam's all crumbling and breaking apart because Megatron's just been in there smashing it to pieces, getting the energy and all that, and they have the fight with those. He's got the Energon axe and that mace, which they made into the toys years later in the modern ones. But that for a long time you don't see those again. Like, it was just a really cool scene, and you get to see a lot of characters all just having big fights. You get to see Roller for the first time coming out of Optimus Prime, who's actually a little is a drone in this, but in the Diaclone he's a vehicle that a little man would be piloting. But they put a bomb in him, and that's what sets off the Decepticons. Are like mining all the resources in this mountain. They send Roller, and that sets the bomb off that starts the explosion and gets things going into the next episode. But there's so much action and stuff going on. Everyone's just getting trashed and beaten up.
It's a great introduction to just the entire series.
It's just nonstop. It's nonstop.
And as a pilot, it kind of has its own definitive ending. Like, if you were never going to watch any more Transformers after it, because it kind of ends with Spike sitting on the rocks and he's writing a diary.
Yeah, that is the last fades to the credits. There's him sitting on the rocks with writing his little diary thing.
And doesn't he say in the diary that the governments of Earth have agreed to give the Autobots all the energy that they need to return to Cybertron? Yes. And that is never brought up again. That is never mentioned again. Ever.
They use that. They reuse that same image of him sitting writing that diary in several episodes, and also in the same 3-season arc. There's a bit where he goes on about the Autobots seem to be good guys, and also they're not traveling in time or something like that. He references time travel for some reason, which has nothing to do with anything in any of the rest of the episode, and it's a bizarre line that makes no sense.
Yeah, they definitely, there was some material that they never returned to, and probably for good reason. I think they realized, I think, especially when they kind of wrote that thing about the governments giving them the energy that they need, like, it kind of it makes it so you don't need any more stories. So they just needed to kind of erase that and retcon it.
I like that. Also, the Nemesis. That's the last. I was just checking. That's the end of the slides, but I'll go back. The Nemesis crashing because of Mirage sabotage. It lands under the water, and then, not unlike the Technodrome and the Ninja Turtles, that becomes the season arc thing where the Decepticons are always underwater for the rest of the season, and eventually they kind of modify part of the ship so it comes up vertically, so it's like a column, and they can launch out of it rather than having to be underwater and then swim up and out of the water. But I thought it was cool that they kept that from the pilot, that the Nemesis was still crashed at the bottom of the water, the same as how the Ark was always crashed into the volcano from the first episode.
It's pretty awesome, definitely. But yeah, it's just a great introduction to the series, to the show. It's just, the animation, it can be a little bit dodgy in places. There can be a few animation mistakes here and there, and that's not just with the pilot
there's some
episodes.
fun
That's with
ones.
like
There's some
every
fun ones in
episode.
there.
Yeah, we could probably do a top 4 bad animation episodes of Transformers. There's plenty to pick
I
from.
like
But when the animation is good, it's really good.
Yeah, one of my favorite eras is one of the background scenes in these episodes. They're all standing around talking, and Bumblebee's at one spot, and then over here is Prowl, but he's got Bumblebee's head on him because it's from behind, but he's got the wrong head. And the other fun one is there's a scene with Starscream walking out of the dam or base or whatever, and behind him is another guy half his size who's exactly his colors. And it's just a reflector, but he's colored in Starscream colors for no reason because they just mucked up the colors. There's so many fun ones like that when you're watching.
And some of those animation mistakes then became actual toys just because people wanted like these representations. Crazy.
Yeah, the other one I like in season 3 was with Bruticus. There's a scene where all the Combaticons in their robot mode are walking along, and Bruticus is randomly walking along behind them. So it's like with all of them.
Yeah, they just and you'll find out is it Carnage in C minor, that episode in season 3 where Ultra Magnus picks up 2 Constructicons and bangs them together. Terrible animation, terrible episode.
Yeah.
Was it just coincidence, Johnny, that all your episode picks were written by David Wise? Do you think you have
I've got no idea.
Mostly
I picked the ones where there was big cool robots fighting each other. No, they happen to be some of my favorite ones I thought of off the top of my head. But I don't know, maybe possibly it is because it has episodes in the writing, but I haven't really thought about it. But it could be that also because I have watched them that many times. They're kind of just ingrained in you. I've watched them over and over again. It's usually the characters because I love Metroplex, I love Triptychon, I like Omega Supreme. So when there's fights going on with those guys, I like them. But probably that David Wise probably happened to write those particular episodes, so it's probably a bit of both. Because my other favorite ones I didn't put in the slideshow because it was a bit too long was Five Faces of Darkness. That follows on from the Transformers movie, and the movie plus Five Faces of Darkness is all leftover ideas from the movie. That could be its own show, really. So we could do one on that down the track because there's a lot in that. Like there's just so much in it.
There is a lot to cover. Yeah, we could do. Like you're saying, if we did the '86 movie and then the Five Faces of Darkness afterwards,
just like the appendix to the movie, really.
Exactly. It's also quite the shock to your senses when you watch the animation quality in the movie and then watch the Five Faces of Darkness afterwards. Like, what happened? What the hell happened?
Yeah. Oh, we might wind up this episode.
I'd love if someday somebody actually went in and did touch-ups on some of the old episodes and just cleaned up some of the animation mistakes and just put a new coat of paint on it just to fix some of those dodgy episodes for the dodgy animation.
Cool. Actually, that reminds me on the Beast Wars show, like the original Beast Wars, not the other sequel shows. That's on YouTube, and someone has, or maybe a group of people, they've done like an HD upscale to it, and it's really beautiful. Like not just one, the entire season and everything. And I was watching some last week, and it looks amazing. It looks like a show that was made today. Like you could, so that's worth a look on YouTube.
Check that out. I must check because I haven't watched any Beast Wars in a long time. Like I was still like early 20s the last time I watched any Beast Wars, so I am due to rewatch it. So I would like to watch it in as best a quality as I can.
Yeah, and it's only last year someone's done it. It looks beautiful. They've run it through some kind of AI machine processing thing that must have taken hundreds of hours, I would assume. But it looks beautiful.
So we could be covering Beast Wars episodes someday. Who knows, folks?
Maybe.
Something for you all to look forward to out there.
There's plenty of chunky robots before we get to smooth robots.
And we're just going to reiterate. I know we don't need to, but we will anyway. Like this, we weren't saying that these were the best episodes. They were just our favorite ones that we picked this time round. So if you have a different top 4, top 5, whatever, let us know what your favorite episodes are. We're always keen to know what other people are thinking as well. And like we said, we could easily go back to this and pick out another 4 or 5 episodes because there's plenty to pick from.
Oh, I could pick 10 or 20 episodes easily. But yeah, we might wind up there for this episode. I'll say thanks, guys, for tuning in, and hope you enjoyed our picks and us rambling on about crazy 80s robots. And I'll just throw up the thing here and say thanks to everyone for watching. And good night from me. Good night from Mark.
Good night.